So, what kind of a mess do we have ourselves in today? Wiring all over the table, plastic mechanism, and a bunch of parts laying over here. But I think I figured out what the problem is, so I'm going to take it down in the workshop and show you what's going on. I've moved down to the basement workshop where I normally work on my model trains, and we're going to take a look at this problem item here, and I'll show you what's going on. Now this is a Snow Village collectible. It's an animated item. Santa in the upper right corner is standing there waiting to have his photo taken with the children. And each child will move around with a magnet to Santa's area, and then that little elf in the center will take a photo with him, and the light is supposed to flash on the camera as each child has his picture taken. This mechanism has a motor attached to it, and that's what makes the kids move on the platform with these gears and the belt. They use this mechanism here to spin around, which is sort of a cam type thing, and when it spins it hits this reed switch, and every time the reed switch sends power up through the hole into the camera, the little light or flash is supposed to flash. So since this wasn't working correctly, I decided to start troubleshooting the switch and the wiring and the bulb in the camera and the motor assembly. Now I started over here with the DC power adapter which came with it. It's 4.5 volts into this switch, and that wire just leads up into the item and over across to the motor. There's 2 leads on the motor, and it's powered all the time, so the motor runs all the time. Off the motor, a black wire comes down, goes into a hole up through the center, which goes to the flash on the camera, and then back down through the black wire comes down to the switch, and then the white wire comes up and heads back to the motor. So the theory here is that the motor will always be running and spinning, and then every time the reed switch is hit with the cam, the flash will flash on the camera. And I did a lot of troubleshooting and couldn't figure it out, and all of a sudden I thought about that how it works, and that capacitor in there which charges and holds just enough power so that when the switch is hit it'll short and release its power into the flash. It turns out when I swapped out that capacitor for one that I had, which in itself is amazing, I had one of these in the basement, believe it or not, and it started working okay, so I figured I better bring it down here to the workshop and swap that out using my soldering iron and all the tools that I have down here. So after I swapped out the capacitor, it still didn't work correctly, and I knew I had to troubleshoot further. I started looking at the wiring again, and I concentrated on the reed switch at the bottom. I thought I could bypass it, so I took a screwdriver and shorted out the 2 terminals here where the black and the white wires are, and when I did that, the bulb actually came on. So I knew it was something to do with that switch. I took my handy dandy contact cleaner, my tuner cleaner, which is probably illegal in about 30 of the 50 states. I shot some in there with some compressed air afterwards and worked the switch, and it seemed to work pretty well. So now I'm thinking it was probably the reed switch that was bad all along and not the capacitor, even though I did all that work to swap it out. After a partial reassembly, I tested the cam system to make sure that it worked. So the motor spins around, and these little tabs on here are magnetic, and that's what moves the kids on the platform. And then when the reed switch is hit by the piece of plastic on the cam, the flash fires. Here's the completed project, fully operational. Child moves around the snowbank. Children queue up. Next child, please. Santa moves over. Photo is taken. Flash fires. Child moves on around the snowbank. Children queue up. Next child, please. Santa moves into position. Photo taken. Flash fires. Child moves around the snowbank. And so on. So I spent way too much time working on this, but I learned a lot during the process, and it took my mind off of some other stress that was going on right now. Mission accomplished.